Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Bullony Basketball, coming to you, filming on a late Sunday night, Father's Day. To all the fathers out there, happy Father's Day. Um, I am taking over the intro for tonight, um, and instead of Garrett introducing me, I get the honor and the duty to introduce Garrett, my co-host. So, how's it going, Garrett?
Yeah, not too bad. I thought we'd switch it up again. I believe we did this an episode back, but as you can see, my camera is being weird per usual. It happens once every other episode, so we just got to work with it and however it goes. But yeah, I'm excited to talk more. I don't know if you want to introduce us to, we're gonna second round recap. If you want to do, the first series with the 1 seed in the East and the 5 seed.
Yeah, we can get right into it. So if we're gonna head to the east, like you said, this game actually just wrapped up about an hour ago. And it ended up with Atlanta, the 5 seed, beating the 1 seed Philadelphia 76ers. Um, Truly fitting, I guess, for a team coached by Doc Rivers. Excuse me, most losses. I think I just saw 29 losses he has during playoff games with the chance to clinch the series.
Jeez.
Blown some of the worst leads as a coach. Ben Simmons just took 3 shots in the fourth quarter in 7 games, passed up a wide open layup tonight. Um, Things just weren't really working. Atlanta has now won 5 games on the road through 2 series. Um, they're looking like a good team, but this is a team that Philly definitely should have beaten. I'm not going to attribute it to Danny Green being out, but obviously Danny Green is a piece to the puzzle for the 76ers. Um, but I think the big question here is just what happens in the offseason. Now you have a GM like Daryl Morey, so you know he's not afraid to blow things up. Um, but is this the last game that we'll see Ben Simmons playing in a 76ers uniform? I think it's a fair question to ask. Um, Atlanta, I give them a fighter's chance next series, but they're obviously not the favorites against Giannis and the Bucks. But they played their tails off, and they deserve every bit of what they got.
Yeah, I think the record then would be if they have 5 wins on the road, 5-2 on the road in the playoffs, which is hard to do, especially being that they haven't been the home team, for a majority of either series. So you got to give them credit there. I just think, it seemed like the Hawks just wanted it more, and it's kind of, I feel like, good that the Sixers lost because I didn't want them to win and then for their own sake think, maybe we could do this. Maybe we can move on with Ben Simmons or, with Doc Rivers. I could see maybe Tobias Harris, like a change there if someone's willing to take him. It just doesn't seem like this team, like they'll be competitive, but I don't think that they would be able to get over the hump. Um, and they just didn't seem as motivated. Like Ben Simmons just looked kind of confused. He looked kind of dazed at moments during the series. So I could very well see him getting traded. And then looking at the Hawks side of things, they're a good team. Trey Young had a very bad night tonight, probably his worst playoff game all 2021 playoffs, and they still managed to get it done because guys like Kevin Herter and Gallinari stepped up. Even Bogdanovich wasn't playing that well. They still managed to get it done. Guys like Collins and Capella, Lou Williams is always going to provide a spark off the bench. They just have a lot of guys, and I think that I wouldn't be surprised if they managed to beat the Bucks. I wouldn't pick them, but I think that similar to Philadelphia, Milwaukee can kind of take their foot off the gas a lot. So they might get surprised. The Bucks, I think they're undefeated right now at home in the playoffs, so there's that going for them. But it should be interesting to see. I mean, we'll talk about the West in a sec, but like just the playoffs in general, like there's you know a lot of new faces.
I mean, and this begs the question, like this is probably the best shot that Philly has had up until this point, and maybe the best shot that they have going forward. No LeBron. The Warriors weren't the Warriors. Kawhi is now out with what's believed to be an ACL, but he's not playing. Phoenix is a good team, but Chris Paul is out for at least some period of time with the whole COVID thing. They were on the opposite side of the bracket of Milwaukee and Brooklyn, so they would avoid at least one of them. Um, and there's no Brooklyn if they were to move on, who, as healthy, is probably what we consider to be the best team in the league. So there was a lot going for them, and now they're not in a position to take advantage of it.
Yeah, we can jump into that series here, but like you said, they worked so hard to get the first seed in the regular season just to avoid playing the Bucks or the Nets. But yeah, it just shows you can't take anyone lightly in the playoffs. But yeah, like the Nets Bucks series probably lived up to what we thought it was going to be. 7 game series. That's what we always all wanted. Uh, but it just, I don't know, just the way it ended seemed like anticlimactic. Like Durant hit an amazing shot to force it to overtime. He had some amazing moments throughout the series, throughout the playoffs, and then just I think what happened like on that shot um, in overtime, it kind of just took away from a lot of the feel. I don't know about you, but that's kind of like what I felt. But what do you think?
I mean, he was gassed.
Yeah,
Played literally like I think he played 53 minutes. Played every minute of game 5. Played every minute of game 7. Literally put his team in a position to win game 7 by forcing that by hitting that shot to force overtime where it was basically a three but put just on the line. Um, a great series all around. Happy for Giannis, happy for the Bucks. Um, didn't think that it should have taken the Bucks 7 games. You played against Kevin Durant, and I know Kyrie played for the first couple, but then he was out after that. And when Harden came back, we all know that Harden wasn't Harden. I mean, he said that him playing that game was the first basketball activity he had since he was out with that hamstring. Um, he was under 50%. I put him about 30% hobbling on one leg. Um, but Milwaukee finally got over the hump. But man, oh man, do they need to move on from Coach Bud because he is not the answer.
yeah, and it's kind of like the opposite, I think, of what we were talking about with the Sixers. Like it's almost like a loss could help them because they need to make changes. But we'll see what the Bucks management does if like they get to the finals and then they lose. Like, will they keep Budenholzer for longer? Like, I don't know. Um, but yeah, I think that like going on the James Harden point, like yeah, he wasn't 100%, but I just question some of the decisions that he had in those games. Like even if you're not 100%, you could always do what Scottie Pippen did in the finals, like in 1998, and he served as a decoy in the game he got hurt. It didn't really seem like that for Harden. It seemed like he was trying to like kill the offense a lot. I believe he took 17 shots in the last game and only had like 5 for 17. I can understand the first game. You're trying to get a feel for it. It's your first game back, but I think once game 3 hit or game 3 for him coming back, so game 7. Um, I think that he had to just like make better decisions. And I don't know, it just seemed like he was kind of taking away a lot from the Nets offense. But I guess you got to credit the Bucks. Like they weren't really playing that well either in game 7. Middleton was shooting bad. Drew Holiday was not shooting that very well. Um, but yeah, I think that it was definitely an interesting series. Maybe it seemed like so fun throughout the whole thing. It just like ended in probably about as weird of a way as you could put it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Middleton was rough on the road all series long, but hit a big shot in overtime. Played KD tough. I mean, I give the Bucks a good shot. And there's 4 teams left, so obviously everybody has at least a decent shot of winning it. But the Bucks are the Bucks and Atlanta are both healthy, but the Bucks are a better team, so there's that going for them. Phoenix is healthy, assuming that Chris Paul is able to come back in a timely manner. But if you face the Clippers, you're facing a Clippers team without their best player, or you're going to face a young Phoenix team in the final. So this is a good shot for Giannis to win his first title.
Yeah, and that's kind of the last thing I was gonna say. Like this is at this point, it's kind of the Bucks championship to lose. Like the Hawks, like I think that they should be able to beat the Hawks If they can't, that's a disappointment in itself. Clippers, no Kawhi. Suns, no Chris Paul. Of course, he's likely going to come back, but it could mess up like the flow of the offense. Of course, he's still dealing with probably the shoulder thing that he suffered in the first round. And the Bucks, they've just been together longer, and this is like it's come to a point where decisions are probably going to be made. Um, if they can't achieve their goal of a championship, like they're going to start looking more and more closely at some of the players on the team, the coaching staff, if they can't get it done in this situation, because this is probably as good of a chance as they're going to get. Um,
Yeah, I'd agree.
but yeah, and we can move on now to the first seed and the 4 seed in the Western Conference, the Jazz and the Clippers. This one might be the most chaotic second round series. What were your thoughts on it, though?
And Utah looked like they just weren't going to lose. Those first 2 games, came out, everything went well. And those were without Mike Conley. So everybody's like, just wait till Mike Conley gets back. Wait till Mike Conley gets back. And then Ty Lue just made some adjustments. I mean, he literally, on any given night, will play 12 guys. And you don't know whose name's going to be called. But I think this was like a big Paul George game. Or a big Paul George series, I guess. Paul George being able to come out and win 2 games in a 2-2 series as his team. No Kawhi Leonard. He wasn't the Robin to the Batman. He was the Batman. And obviously we got to speak about Terrence Mann because of what he did was incredible. But Paul George to take on that leadership, to be the guy to lead this team to, I guess, 4 straight wins, but 2 of them as the head man. Team, I give a solid chance to beat Phoenix. Atlanta is probably the least favorite to win it all, but I think the Clippers have a fair shot to do so.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it will depend, if they can get Kawhi back some point in the series, and not like too late in the series. If so, then I definitely would give them a huge chance at doing so. I don't think that they want to go down 2-0 for the 3rd straight series and try and pull off another miracle. But that very well could happen as well. I just think it just seemed like the Jazz, like they didn't really make many changes. And it's kind of surprising because you see Quinn Snyder gets a lot of praise from a lot of the other coaches in the league, and it seemed like he didn't really make many adjustments, and he kind of got outcoached in the most crucial moments by Ty Lue. There's really no excuse that they should have lost the series once Kawhi went down, even without Mike Conley. And Mike Conley, he's always kind of been a rhythm player in himself. I feel bad for Donovan Mitchell. I think that he did just about everything he could to try and win the series for them. But, I mean, Game 5, like you said, was probably one of, if not the most iconic game for Paul George that, we've ever seen. And then Game 6, that was like, I don't want to be like Skip Bayless here because he says it's like once every other day, but I don't think I've ever seen something like that, like in Game 6. Like Terrence Mann kind of just came out of nowhere, shocked everyone. Batum was playing insane on both ends of the floor. Pat Bev was hitting clutch threes. Paul George, it literally just seemed like everyone was doing everything possible, and then to pull off the ultimate comeback to get to their first conference finals, which everyone would call a curse for several years. It just seemed like the most fitting way for them to, pull it off, especially after what happened like last year. So it was a cool moment for the Clippers, but I'm sure now that they're in the conference finals, they got bigger things on their mind than just that. I think they want to go all the way if possible.
Yeah, and Quinn Snyder, great coach in the regular season, but just doesn't appear to make those adjustments in the postseason. He's one of those guys that sticks to everything that happened during the regular season and kind of just follows that same format without making those adjustments as they come.
And it also doesn't help when they shoot 12 of 15 on the Defensive Player of the Year in the closeout game. They were hitting crazy shots. And then we can touch really quickly on this next series. Probably the least interesting of the 4 since it ended the sweep. 2 seed Phoenix, 3 seed Denver. just to like, I really didn't see much in this series because it was just mainly Jokic and Monte Morris for the Nuggets. A lot of the other players struggled. I was a bit surprised that they threw Jokic out of Game 4, though. That was kind of surprising to me. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on this series?
Yeah, I mean, not a whole lot to talk about. Sweep. Didn't expect much out of Denver. Phoenix came in, took care of business. Jokic was just cooked by that point, exhausted. Could only do so much. Didn't expect them to get swept. Expected them to take at least one game, but Phoenix came out and meant all business. So I don't want to waste too much time discussing this series just because there wasn't all that much to hit on.
Yeah, and I think it's the first time an MVP has been swept since like 1989, like, and I think it was Magic. But
Yeah.
yeah, there's not much really to talk about here. It just didn't seem like the Nuggets. If Jamal Murray's healthy, likely a different outcome. Don't know if the Nuggets win, but it's at least a more competitive series. Uh, and maybe it could have gone 6 or 7, but I mean, yeah, we could kind of move on to now the Final Four. We've talked about some of these teams already, but just in general, both series. Clippers, Suns. Suns are already up 1-0, and then Bucks, Hawks is going to be the next series. What do you see in this conference finals?
I'm gonna go 7 in Phoenix. So I'm gonna go Clippers in 7. I still think they have enough of what it takes to beat this Phoenix team, even sans Kawhi Leonard. Um, the switching on the perimeter, guys to throw at them, Pat Bev, Terrence Mann, good defender, smaller individuals. I guess Terrence Mann a bit longer, but then you got Paul George, Batum, and Marcus Morris on the perimeter. The big thing is what they do with Ayton. Do you want to play Zubats and DeMarcus Cousins, or you just want to play small and take Batum on him? So I think that's going to be something to watch. But I think that'll be a better series than what we see in the East. I see Milwaukee winning in 5. Just too much, honestly, too much star power. Um, what do you do with Giannis? Do you put Capella on Giannis or do you put John Collins on Giannis? I'm going to say they go John Collins on Giannis. Um, but I just don't think they have, I don't want to say a natural Giannis stopper because no one does, but I don't think they have somebody that at least matches up with him in a generally decent way. And how do you hide Trey Young? Do you put him on PJ Tucker? Because I'm not sure that works. They're just going to get him involved in ball screens all game long.
Yeah, to go start with the Western Conference, Suns and Clippers. I don't think that the Clippers this time will go down 2-0. I feel like they were that close today, and mainly Paul George and Reggie Jackson were the only ones that were contributing throughout the majority of the game. DeMarcus Cousins had a little stint in there, but he was also in foul trouble in just as short of the time that he played. And you look at the Suns, almost everyone played great. Mikal Bridges maybe was the only one that struggled, but he hit the shots down the stretch that mattered the most. So I think it's also going to go 7, and I also think the Clippers will still win. But I mean, geez, this is. I will say though, whoever wins this series, I think will win it all between the Clippers and the Suns because I expect Kawhi to at least be back by the start of the finals, which could be a bold prediction. He might just not come back at all, but I feel like he will come back at least before the start of the NBA Finals. And as for the Bucks Hawks, I don't feel good about doubting the Hawks because they kept like proving people wrong over and over again. Um, and I feel like the Bucks are gonna play around a little, knowing them. Like I think Barkley even said, he's like, I think the Bucks will win it all, but the Bucks got to be the dumbest team. Sometimes it does seem like that. So I mean, I'm picking the Bucks to win. I think it'd be crazy to go against them, but I'll say 6 games. I think 6 is fair. I feel like Atlanta will probably get that one on the road in Milwaukee in Game 5, and then the Bucks will retaliate and close them out in 6. But these should be some interesting series for sure.
Yeah, I mean, looking more forward to the ones in the West, but it's basketball and you never know what happens. There's parity. We've seen it already happen in the league. And who knows if we'll see more of it in these conference finals.
For sure. But obviously, There's a lot more stuff happening in the NBA. Uh, we had a trade, which is pretty crazy, and with a big name in Kemba Walker going to the Oklahoma City Thunder. Along with, like you said, I believe a first round pick and a second round pick. And then the Celtics are getting a second round pick back as well, Moses Brown and Al Horford, who they had very recently ago. But what do you think of the trade? Like, and do you think maybe both sides win, or is there one particular winner?
Yeah, so I guess to sum it up a little more, Kemba's got two more years left at the high price tag. Horford has one more year left at a high price tag. So if you break the trade down like player by player, pick by pick, it's 2 years of Kemba's bad contract for one bad year of Horford's contract. It's Moses Brown for the 16th pick of this year's draft, and it's them swapping second round picks. I think Boston sending a 25 and receiving a 2023 second round pick. Um, I mean, we've talked about it before, and I've said it on the show that Kemba Walker is not the answer to Boston. Injuries were part of it. He was injury. He was kind of crippled his time in Boston. He was good when he was healthy, but just wasn't the answer. So, time for them to move on. I agree with all of that. Horford knows the system. Knows the system. He's played well there before. But now we have a logjam of bigs. We have Robert Williams, we have Al Horford, we have Moses Brown, we have Tristan Thompson. So sure, the Celtics are far from over. So I guess we'll just monitor, see what they do the rest of the offseason.
Yeah, it just didn't seem like Kemba, and this can kind of go back to like with Gordon Hayward, and it seemed like he was almost at the end unwanted in Boston. Didn't really fit. Didn't really seem like he wanted to be there, and then he left Charlotte. And He's played good, since obviously he got hurt near the end of the year, but he was playing good while he was healthy. I feel like Kemba Walker will play well in OKC, and they'll kind of like rise. His stock value will rise again as well. Um, but yeah, I don't think that he was the answer for Boston either. So I think it's good kind of in both ways, especially getting back Al Horford, who can be an important piece for them. I feel like the only reason Al Horford left is because of how toxic it was in 2019. But I don't think he had really many problems with that Boston team. I think that everyone just wanted to like get out of there. So I'm sure that he's probably fine being back there with some of the players that probably weren't quite as toxic. Um, and then yeah, also getting Moses Brown. I mean, this guy had some crazy games this year. I believe he had like a 2020 game this year. So I mean, that's not Moses Brown. That's Moses Malone right there. But yeah, I think that it's a good trade for both sides, and it should be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, Kemba will probably do a little Dennis Schroeder, a little Chris Paul, play the season, um, kind of just get his stock back up there, and then OKC will do what they do best, get a couple picks for a guy like Kemba Walker and move on.
For sure. One other thing we could touch on is these coaches and how a lot of them are just falling down, like whether it's being fired or whether it's just stepping down. Well, I think one of the biggest ones that caught a lot of people by surprise is Rick Carlisle. He said that he's not going to be the coach next year. He had been there for so long, ever since they won their championship. In 2011, he was the coach of that team. Guys like Stan Van Gundy is gone. We already knew about like Terry Stotts and stuff like that. Very well could see maybe Doc Rivers also joining them. Of course, he just signed a new deal, so we'll see how that goes. But what do you think of a lot of these coaching changes this offseason?
Well, I think Nate McMillan has done himself enough during this postseason to cement himself as the Atlanta Hawks head coach. Sorry, I need to at least not brag about it, but I need to shine some light on me bashing Indiana for firing Nate McMillan and seeing where it took him now. Um, but yeah, there's some good jobs available out there. Boston's a good job. You got Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Portland, you have Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum for now. Who knows what will happen with McCollum? If Rivers is indeed let go by Philly, you obviously have Joel Embiid and a bunch of players that we don't know he'll be on the team or not next year. Um, in Dallas, you have the best young player in the league in Luka Doncic. So um, I think a lot of these big jobs are going to look for proven coaches to come in and kind of be able to lead as opposed to bring in some young coach that's maybe on the horizon of some of these rebuilding teams.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting. It's always kind of neat to see, when there's a lot of new coaches that were with a certain team for so long, and then they come over and coach a new system. But I don't know. I think that some of them just caught me by surprise, especially the Rick Carlisle one the most. But yeah, I mean, obviously with player personnel and what they want, it seemed like a coach like Terry Stotts seemed like he was kind of it was time for him to go. The fans didn't want him there. The players, I'm sure they liked him as a person, but I'm sure that it kind of made his time where they just needed a change there. Stan Van Gundy was getting a lot of criticism all year long for like misutilization of so many of their players, um, and inability to like close out games. Like I remember the one where he called out his players saying, a high school team could close out this game, and I think I saw people saying like, so could a high school coach. So, so it's like I don't know, like some of these are very warranted, and again, we'll see like what happens with Doc Rivers. We'll see what happens with Steve Nash. I feel like a lot of people are going to try and make him like a scapegoat as well, but I feel like he shouldn't get fired. I don't think that that's warranted. And to your Nate McMillan point, I think it was time for Indiana to move on. I just think he wasn't the coach for them. But I agree. I don't think he's a bad coach by any means. I think that he's done. I mean everything possible with Atlanta, especially when people said they're going to regret firing Lloyd Pierce. So I mean it's just a lot of craziness with the coaches right now in the NBA. Um,
Yeah, we generally see a nice job or a well-known coach or two fired a year, but we're already at four and the offseason hasn't even started.
exactly. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much everything that we were projecting to talk about. Any final thoughts?
No, nothing more on my end. We've made it. There's four teams left. We're gonna see one significant player win the first ring of their respective career, and I'm here for it. So I'm excited. Parity in the NBA, and I cannot be happier.
And we're going to see a significant outcome in the draft lottery on Tuesday, where the Chicago Bulls get the first pick and don't lose it to the Orlando Magic because that would be bad news. But yeah, I think that's pretty much going to do it. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed, and we're out. Peace.